Tonight we're enormously privileged to have the new, or not quite so new, United States Ambassador Glyn Davies come to the club at a time when arguably US-Thai relations are perhaps at their most delicate state, maybe even for decades. And this is a relationship, of course, that goes back a very, very long way. I think the first treaty between the US and Thailand was signed back in 1833. So it's an important relationship. Thailand is, of course, a treaty ally. But there's a definite sense, particularly since the coup last year, that relations have chilled. And we've had a number of episodes of what might be called friction, at least, or disagreements of views. And that's not unique to the United States, of course. Other Western governments have had similar problems in trying to find a meeting of minds between the current rulers in Thailand and the values which these countries believe are essential to their foreign relations. But this is such an important relationship. For any ambassador coming in at this time, obviously it's a very daunting task, and we're very pleased. Ambassador Davies, who has a long track record, most recently working on North Korea as the US representative on North Korea, which arguably might be pretty good training for what he's having to deal with now. But we're very pleased he's able to come here, and I will now invite Ambassador Davies to outline for us how he's going to do the job. Once he's finished, I'll open the floor to questions. I will try to prioritize working journalists if possible. Ambassador.
Well, thank you, Jonathan, very much. What an introduction. Appreciate that. Let me stipulate and state for the record, the North Korea job has nothing to do with my assignment here. So thank you for that, and it's great to be here at the Foreign Correspondents Club of Thailand. Appreciate you inviting me, and my wife Jackie, who is here, or maybe there she is, she's there. I've had the great pleasure of meeting some of you already, and I look forward to meeting more of you in the coming weeks. Now, I understand that this venerable club is the largest and the oldest, not just in Thailand, but in Southeast Asia, and that you were born in 1957, is that right? So was I. So in a couple of years' time, maybe we can both arrange to coordinate our propitious 60th birthdays. So what I want to do here, and I think do I have 15 minutes or so? Is that right? Or it could be less, whatever. I want to do a couple of things. First of all, I want to, in a craven fashion, demonstrate to you my bona fides as somebody who likes to deal with the press. Talk a bit about my philosophy of dealing with the media. I have a funny feeling that this job that I've taken on here in Thailand representing the United States of America will have a lot to do with the media and media freedoms and perhaps all of you. And I will stipulate up front that I come from a bureaucratic culture, the State Department, that is allergic to the media. They call it foggy bottom, not just because of the weather patterns in Washington. But a couple of accidents happened to me early in my career that set me on a slightly different path as an American diplomat that put me on a different trajectory with the media. And I want to just outline those briefly for you today to establish my bona fides and maybe help you to understand a little bit more about me. And the first accident involved a persistent journalist and an enlightened boss, a boss who actually was thinking, I think, in a very enlightened fashion about the media. And here's how it went. This was about 30 years ago. Jackie and I had served in Australia and in Africa, in the Congo, called Zaire then, a country so old these days that it's changed its name. And we came back to Washington, and it was time for me to do my Washington jobs, my policy jobs, and I had a bunch of different jobs. Worked for George Shultz, who was a great boss, Secretary of State Shultz. And then I ended up in a place called the NATO desk in the State Department, part of the European Bureau. And we were hot shots back then because This was the Cold War, and we were working on NATO. Our big rivalry in the State Department was with the Soviet desk. We have these desks in the State Department, like I think some journalistic establishments. And so I'm there on the NATO desk, working on, at a junior level, in the publish or perish world of the State Department on NATO nuclear issues. And in a Washington that was at daggers drawn, the State Department, the Pentagon were not coordinating not talking to each other. That extended all the way up to the Secretaries of State and Defense. Real battles going on, Potomac battles going on. And people forget now, I don't forget, the wars over some big questions. I mean, we were, for goodness sake, think about this. We were sending nuclear weapons to Europe, short-range nuclear missiles, intermediate-range nuclear missiles. There was a lot of nervousness, and relations between Moscow and Washington were not good. And the Europeans, the Western Europeans, were concerned about this, this tension. And I'm sitting there, I'm a junior guy, I'm in my 20s, I'm doing my job, I'm writing, cables every day. We were working from 8 a.m. in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, clearing cables and sending them instructions to Brussels and cables around. And I get a call from a guy named Jeff Smith from the Washington Post. And Jeff Smith is a great journalist, and he was a great journalist then, and he was on the national security beat, and he wrote these tough, hard-edged articles about the Cold War and the nuclear issues and so forth. And I was freaked out as a 26, 27-year-old desk officer working on NATO to have Jeff Smith of the Washington Post, whose stories I read every morning before coming to work, calling me up. Now, Jeff was probably desperate in calling me up, truth be told. And I didn't know what to do, so I walked in to the office of my boss, Ray Caldwell, a great old Foreign Service officer who was running the NATO desk. And I said, Ray, what do I do? I got this journalist calling me up, Jeff Smith from the Washington Post. We're not supposed to talk to these guys, right? Ray was, a 1 in a million diplomat who said, no. He said, no, look, the Pentagon is leaking like crazy. They're winning hearts and minds around this town within the Beltway. So, go ahead and talk to Jeff Smith. Be careful about it. Make sure the ground rules are set and all that stuff, but talk to him. Tell him, our point of view. Be careful and let me know what's going on. And I began to talk to Jeff Smith. Jeff and I joke about this 30 years later when I run into him in Washington. He's still a journalist. And Jeff was a wonderful guy. He took my virginity as a bureaucrat. And he never burned me. He actually schooled me in kind of how it all works, what's background, what's deep background, what's off the record. He protected me. When I said stupid things that he knew were stupid, he made sure not to use them. And so that was my first experience, and I picked up this notion that maybe journalists are okay and maybe it makes sense to talk to them. Now, fast forward about a decade later, Cold War is over, and I get a phone call saying, "Would you like to be the deputy spokesman of the State Department?" I had never, what's that? What's the deputy spokesman of the State Department? And like an idiot, I said, yes, I'll do this. And I went and I did this job. And what that meant was, every day at the State Department, at noon, around noon, comes the press corps into a room on the first floor of the State Department, and somebody, either Nick Burns, my boss, or me, when Nick was traveling with Secretary Christopher, would stand up there, and they turn the cameras on, and we would, we would read the announcements, and then we would try to answer the questions, and we had a magic book, and it had guidance in it, and all that stuff. And I was not a natural at it. I'm not. Nick Burns is good, if you know Nick Burns. I wasn't good. I had to work hard to survive and keep my head above water, but I did it And standing in front of the State Department press corps, sometimes for days on end during some real hot and heavy moments, making a lot of mistakes, I learned a lot. I learned about news cycles. What's a news cycle? I learned about the different appetites and interests of the electronic versus the print media. I knew I could speak freely with the networks because they weren't going to use anything I said, but that I better be careful with the wires. I learned the personalities around town. I learned the narrower interests of the foreign press accredited to the State Department and the broader interests of the American press on foreign policy. I learned that the State Department has one job in Washington, to deliver bad news, and the White House has the job of delivering good news. And so I never got to deliver any good news. And then I learned that in the minutes leading up to the briefing, when you're in a job as a flak for the government of the United States, that's the most important part, because that's when you're on the phone. Sometimes you're yelling on the phone at these colleagues around the bureaucracy, telling them, trying to explain to them that the pablum that they were providing, the drivel they had given you, wasn't going to get the job done. And that, out of self-interest, my role in life was to avoid being slaughtered when the cameras went on and when the media began to question me. And I also learned the corollary to that, which is if you don't know the answer, don't make it up, or you will truly be crucified. Now, there were great journalists in the State Department press corps. A guy named Barry Schweid of the Associated Press, his colleague George Guetta, Carol Giacomo, who was with Reuters, now with the New York Times, Ralph Begleiter, giants like this. And more than once, these wonderful people, I think of them really as public servants, they saved my skin. One time, I was up there. I had just been with Secretary Christopher to a trip to the Middle East. We'd been to Syria, we'd been to Israel, and I was there trying to describe. I was asked a question about Israeli policy, and I made a mistake. I kept referring to, Israel by the name of its capital, and I kept saying, Jerusalem has done this, Jerusalem, and Barry is down front, engaging in semaphore. He'd gone white in the face, and he actually, and I kept doing this, and he finally interrupted me and said, "Glyn, I think you mean Tel Aviv, don't you?" And I said, "No, I'm talking about Jerusalem. I was just there. with the and he did it again. And Barry probably kept me from dying that day, because of course, as was the case then and is the case now, we were not ever to speak of the capital of Israel as being Jerusalem. So thank you, Barry Schweid. And there were many other examples like that. And then later on, just to finish up this little travelogue of my experiences in dealing with the press professionally, I had this job that's been mentioned of dealing on North Korea, and I decided that I was not smart enough to do this without the help of the media, the Japanese media, the Korean media, the American media. So I made a practice of being open with the press corps. I never went to Seoul or Tokyo or Beijing or Moscow without talking on the record to the press, and I found it was a very valuable thing to do. And when I spoke to South Korean journalists, I would often quote to them Thomas Jefferson's famous dictum, and I quote, "Were it left to me to decide whether we should have a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I should not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter." And I had come by that point to believe, after dealing with the government a lot, since I worked for the government and the media, that President Thomas Jefferson, I think, had it right. Anyway, enough reminiscing. Let me talk about Thailand. I've been filibustering a bit because I've only been in Thailand for about 9 weeks, and I'm still a schoolboy. I'm still learning about this place. And I want to be obviously careful about how I describe things, but I do want to talk a bit about Thailand, because for the United States of America, this is an important, a consequential, a key relationship that we have. I think if I had to boil my mission statement down to a phrase, I'd say that during my tenure as the United States ambassador here, I have a commitment, and my commitment is to not only sustaining but expanding the United States-Thailand partnership, a partnership that has endured for, as has been explained, about 9 generations on into the future. And we're proud, we Americans, of our long tradition of friendship and cooperation with the kingdom. And it goes back beyond the 1830s. It goes all the way back to a letter sent by one of our founding fathers, James Monroe, in 1818 to the Kingdom of Siam. And I mention that because it means that in 3 years' time, we'll be at the 200th anniversary of the bicentennial, as it were, of the formal relationship between the two countries. And I'm determined to try to find a way to remind young Americans and young Thais about that. And I've got some ideas that I'll float in the fullness of time to everybody. But since 1818 or 1832 or the post-war period when we formed up our alliance, we've enjoyed a really excellent cooperative relationship between the United States of America and the Kingdom on a broad range of issues that matter a lot, really, to the security and well-being, I think, of both of our countries, the region, and beyond. For example, for over 60 years, we have joined forces to address issues that relate to public health. And I was amazed to learn when I came to Thailand that 1/3 of the people at our very big embassy, it's the largest American embassy outside of a war zone, as they put it, 1/3 of them work on health issues. And this is kind of interesting. From the CDC to the Armed Forces Research Institute to AID and so on. And we've collaborated in a very joint fashion with the Thais on lots of groundbreaking research on HIV/AIDS, on malaria. It was here where American and Thai doctors figured out the secret to interrupting the transmission of HIV/AIDS from mother to daughter. It was here that was developed and is still in development the very first potentially viable vaccine against AIDS. And it was here that they discovered a vaccine that is close to 100% effective against Japanese encephalitis, and on and on and on. So this is an example. Our economic relationship, trading relationship, is substantial. The United States is Thailand's 3rd largest trading partner. U.S. companies have invested $50 billion here. They've created 250,000 jobs, and these are good jobs. These are high-paying jobs, high-tech jobs, high-skilled jobs. Then there's the stuff that really gets me going, the people-to-people links that we've fostered. And this is the most fundamental thing. This is the 7,000 Thai students, more than 7,000 Thai students who study in America every year. The hundreds of Thai young people, professionals who have joined this program that our president is really into. President Obama loves this Young Southeast Asia Leaders Initiative. And if you get a chance, take a look at the footage of my president interacting with young Southeast Asians at these recent summits just last week. Peace Corps here is this is our oldest Peace Corps program. We don't have any older programs. This goes back over half a century. It's big here, so that's important. The security dimension of our cooperation, exceedingly important. Now, it's true, in the aftermath of the military coup of last year, U.S. law kicked in, as it always does, and restricts us from pursuing the full spectrum of engagement militarily with Thailand until the country returns to democratically elected civilian governance. That said, we are maintaining most aspects of our security cooperation, as this benefits not only the United States and Thailand, but the region, such as our humanitarian assistance and disaster relief operations, including during exercises such as Cobra Gold, which we conducted last year. We will conduct it again next year. We saw the two militaries working together to provide 18,000 pounds of relief supplies to victims of the Nepal earthquake, and on and on. Our law enforcement collaboration is also continuing full throttle. And this is important because we combat together transnational crime. We work against narcotics traffickers. We work to deport and extradite from Thailand criminal fugitives. We fight child exploitation and trafficking, identity theft, passport fraud, all manner of issues like that. We work with Thai counterparts to counteract and combat trafficking in persons, another important example. We provide technical assistance related to investigations and prosecutions, as well as general support for building the capacity of law enforcement and judicial institutions here in Thailand. Nevertheless, despite these broad areas of engagement and cooperation, we recognize that Thailand does face considerable challenges at the moment as it charts its path back to democratic rule. And we hope that that path will be sure-footed. We hope it'll be swift. We want to resume, speaking for the United States of America, our full cooperative agenda. And so we very much want Thailand to emerge from this current period as a strong, sustainable democracy capable of playing its critical leadership role in the region. And because of our experience as a nation, I think it's true to say the United States is the world's longest continuously functioning democratic republic at the moment. We believe that the ultimate source of security and stability lies in, speaking for America, our people's direct participation in our government. And so we similarly believe it is Thais themselves from everywhere and from all walks of life who make this country strong and are the foundation of its future success. We think they should have a key role in to play in shaping Thailand's democracy and in moving the country forward. We believe that only an inclusive process that leads Thais to believe their voices are being heard will lead to this long-term stability that we believe, we know, all Thais seek. An open public debate on the country's course is essential to building the institutions needed to ensuring this secure and prosperous future for all Thais. Of course, coming back to this room, and by the way, this is the only time I think I've ever spoken seriously in a bar. That's fun. I might take this up as a practice in future. But an essential feature here in this mix in Thailand getting back to democracy, as the government has said it is doing at the moment, is an open public debate when people can feel safe in expressing their views, even views that differ from their government. Conversely, we believe continued restrictions on freedom of expression have the potential to hinder and to chill the broader debate on the issues facing the country. For this reason, we're concerned. We, the United States of America, I've made no secret about this in the weeks I've been here, we're concerned about the potential for use of the criminal defamation statute to stifle discussion of important public issues in Thailand, and possibly also to deter investigative journalism. Over the past several months, we've seen defamation charges leveled against journalists and others, as well as detention without charges of persons for expressing opinions or reporting on issues deemed sensitive by authorities. We're also concerned by the lengthy and unprecedented prison sentences handed down by Thai military courts against civilians for violating the lèse-majesté law. We Americans deeply respect and admire King Bhumibol, King Rama IX, and I say often to my Thai colleagues in the Thai government that we claim a little bit of the king as a native son of the United States, the only monarch ever born in America. You all know this very well. We respect him, we admire him. We think he's done so many, many wonderful things for not just Thailand, but for the United States and for the region. That said, we believe no one should be jailed for peacefully expressing their views, and we strongly support the ability of individuals and independent organizations to research and to report on important issues without fear of retaliation. The role of the media played in exposing human trafficking in the fishing sector, the abuses committed against migrants, and the humanitarian crisis of migrants stranded at sea earlier this year are examples of the importance of a free press. We therefore, the United States government, welcome the August acquittal of the journalists affiliated with the Phuket One of criminal defamation for their reporting about trafficking. And I can assure you that we regularly urge Thai authorities to ensure that freedom of expression is not criminalized and is protected in accordance with Thailand's international obligations and commitments. So let me come back to you and let me wrap this up, and let me just say I want to applaud this group for continuing to push for greater press freedoms and your continued efforts to create a space for peaceful public discussion of these important issues. I'm confident that despite the transient political challenges that I spoke of, the uncertainties in Thailand today, that the strong bonds that link the United States and Thailand will endure. And I've come to Thailand to learn how best to ensure that these bonds stay strong. I've now met with a number of senior Thai officials. I hope to meet with more. I hope to meet with Thais throughout the kingdom and across all sectors of society and across the political spectrum, and to listen to their views and understand the issues that matter to them. Working every day with our Thai friends and partners, I hope to seize opportunities to deal together with the challenges that face the kingdom, the challenges that face the United States, in order to forge a stable, secure, and prosperous future for both of our peoples. And after 9 weeks, I think that's about all I've got. That sums it up. So thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it. I was trying to run out the clock, so there wouldn't be much time. I'm kidding. Go ahead. Yeah.
We'll take questions now, if I can make a priority for journalists. Achara, if you'd like to take the first, you might want to bring the mic down a little bit.
Hello. Thank you, Ambassador, for your nice speech.
Yes.
Achara from Bangkok Post. I have two questions.
Yes.
First of all, concrete question. Would you like to call for abolishment or revocation of the military prison, temporary prison at the military circle? That's the first question. Right. The second question is about the close relations between Thailand and China, and because today we now having, after we have naval and also army drills with China, now we have Air Force exercise together with them. And I know that we were told that next year the Cobra goal will be at the same level as actually this year. So it will be kind of not yet full-fledged Cobra goal. In this regard, are you concerned of this sort of trend towards the north of my country, and how will you convince the Thai administration and also maybe other stakeholders of this country to be assured that the U.S. will walk side by side or help the relations more healthy? Thank you.
Sure. Well, thank you very much. That's a double-barreled question. Call for the abolition of military prisons. What we've called for, and I think this keeps it in the realm of principles and out of the realm of specific prescriptive advice to the government, is we've called for civilians not to be tried in military courts. We think that that's important. We believe in the in the rule of law. We believe in an independent judiciary. We believe, obviously, in people's right to be defended in a court of law. And we see difficulties. We see real problems with civilians being tried in military courts. So I'll say that about your first question. On China, look, I mean, this I think too many people take a rather kind of simplistic view of, let's call it, I think some refer to it as the great game, China versus the United States, whose camp is Thailand going to be in. Thailand's not going to be in anybody's camp. I've got complete confidence in the kingdom to always maintain its independence. We are all for healthy relationships between Thailand and all of its neighbors, whether immediate neighbors or in Thailand's near abroad, and it's very important that Thailand have a good relationship with China. So if there's been an Air Force exercise between Thailand and China, this is not something that keeps me up at night, nor should it. And largely that's because, in answer to, I think, your last question about how does the United States, I think what you meant was, reassure Thailand or continue to work together side by side with Thailand. We are. This hasn't stopped. This keeps going. We do work together. We work together in all the areas I've mentioned. Thailand is an ally of the United States of America. And it's more than that, because it's important to remember how it all began back when it took 1.5 years for a message to travel from Bangkok to Washington or Washington to Bangkok. It all began not as a result of the fruit of conquest or colonialism or a war or geopolitics. It all began because the leaders of the two countries, Siam and the United States, saw in each other a partner with whom they could find mutual benefit, and they saw in each other nations, peoples who value independence and value freedom, and I don't think that's gone away for Thailand. Thailand is a fiercely independent, in a sense, free country, has always sought to maintain that status, and I think it always will. I think Thailand always will remain independent of colonial influence or influence from the outside. And that's a good thing. And we want Thailand to be strong. We want Thailand to be independent. We want Thailand to be a leader in ASEAN. It's one of the founding members. It's the second largest economy. It's done very well. It's an example for the region and, in some respects, the world. And we want that to continue. And we want to be part of that. And we want to build on the relationship we've had. So look, the coming of a new ambassador is a moment when I have a chance, since I'm, in the job, to try to find ways to highlight the importance of this relationship, the enduring nature of it, and to find new ways to work together and to convince people that this is a natural, ancient relationship for a good reason and should endure into the future. And I have every confidence that it will, because the Thai government, when they speak to me, I think they're completely sincere about their desire to maintain a strong relationship with us.
Thank you. Next question, please. Sean.
Sean Crispin, writing with The Diplomat these days.
Mm-hmm.
Ambassador, there is a sense that you are taking a more nuanced approach to the diplomatic relationship than your predecessor, Ambassador Kristie Kenney. There was if you look at recent press coverage, you said you're willing to work with 95% of the relationship, insinuating that only 5% is off limits under U.S. law. This is a much different tone, again, that Ambassador Kenney took. There was a sense, even amongst some people that study these things, that Kristie Kenney was losing Thailand to China. So I'm curious as to why the change in tone. Now, everything you said this evening has been very upbeat and positive, and you seem to be amplifying the need to work on the 95% as opposed to the 5%. Is that because China was stealing a march while the U.S. was so critical of the coup and suspension of democracy? I know that's a simplistic view to your mind, but explain to me, why the change in tone under your 9 weeks here compared to Ambassador Kenney. And I wonder if you might also elaborate on this notion that the United States and China actually seem to have different power centers in the junta themselves, with the defense ministry very keen to do military deals with China, the prime minister prevaricating, and then perhaps the U.S. and its old allies in the old Privy Council acting as a sounding board for the U.S. How could you speak to just how the U.S. and China have different camps inside the actual military administration?
Sure. Wowza. Sean, I don't know. Did you used to write for Mother Jones or The Guardian, or what's going on here?
The Far Eastern Economic Review, yeah, so close, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, anyway, holy mackerel. Change in tone. Well, look, timing's everything in life, right? So, Kristie Kenney, my predecessor, who, by the way, has been a mentor for me for 25 years in the Foreign Service, who is, we have no finer ambassador in our service. She's one of a handful, there might be 4 or 5 4-star ambassadors. She carries a personal rank of career ambassador, which is the highest rank there is. And because there are so few of us diplomats, she's one of a very few, and there's a reason for that. She's very, very good at what she does. And of course, she was here when the coup occurred. She had a tough job. She had to deal with that and the aftermath of that. Interregnum, 11 months ensues, because it takes the United States of America a long time to make ambassadors, because we have a constitution that was built by James Monroe and these other guys to be slow about how it gets things done, and I'm a living example of that. So time passes. I come along, I'm a different kind of a guy. I got to have a different style. It gives me a chance to, try to set a tone that I think is right for this moment, for this relationship, for for what's important for both the United States and Thailand. And that's what I'm trying to do, and I'm in week number 9 here. And I don't know what the future's going to bring. I don't know what I'm going to confront. Who knows? You never know in these jobs. I don't know what instructions are going to come flying over the transom from Washington to me in reaction to events that occur. That's life. I mean, I work for the president. I work for the executive branch. I work for the State Department of the United States, and we execute instructions, and that's my chain of command. You all have your editors and your owners, and I've got the Secretary of State and the President and lots of other people. So I'm not sure I can take that on directly. I would reject the notion that we've changed our position on any of the core issues that matter here. Our law hasn't changed. We still have suspended, international military education and training and foreign military financing to the tune of about $4.9 million. That will remain suspended until a civilian government elected by the people of Thailand is put in place. Everybody knows that. Kristie said it too. And by the way, I'd hold up a little bit of a mirror to this room because I don't know what kind of reporting was being done. Well, I do know. I read it. I read the reporting that was being done when the coup occurred, and I saw the way. I saw the gauntlet that Kristie Kenney had to run. And she had a very high degree of difficulty to face, I think. And I think there was an awful lot of projecting onto her as America's representative, a lot of kind of polemical views about the United States and the totality of our relationship with Thailand. No, we don't think we're losing Thailand to China. I just, I find that, just kind of a ludicrous proposition for the reasons I outlined before, because I think the Thais have always had a very astute diplomacy. They've dealt in incredibly sure-handed ways with some really, really tough diplomatic problems in the last 3 or 4 generations. They're good diplomats, and they're good. There's a reason why this is the only corner of Southeast Asia that was never made a colony by the European powers, and it wasn't, an accident of geography. This was deliberate diplomacy on their part. So no, I'm not sent here to, be Mr. To put on moccasins and tread softly in order to, not to lose Thailand to China, because there's nothing about Thailand that's going to get lost. Thailand is going through a period of internal introspection in some respect. Politically, it's no secret. The Prime Minister himself talks about it all the time, the roadmap to democracy and so forth. And this needs to be worked through, and we hope it's done well and done relatively quickly, and that Thailand gets back to the democracy that everybody I talk to wants to have happen here. And I just think it's way too 19th century to be talking about great games and superpowers, trying to sneak allies out from under each other and so forth. I think in a globalized world, that kind of analysis just doesn't work any longer, in particular in this country. So, thanks.
Thank you very much. Can we have the next question, please?
Hi, Ambassador. Jerome Taylor from AFP News Agency.
Yes.
You met junta leader General Prayut in October, and one of the things you said to local Thai reporters back then was that you didn't really say much. You said you were there to listen to him.
Right.
I have a relatively simple question, which is, do you think he listens to you? Do you think the senior junta leadership listens to both you as ambassador, but also listens to what Washington has to say? Because in the last year and a bit since the coup, we've heard Washington say they would like to see a return to democracy soon. They would like to see an end of the rights abuses, and we have seen the opposite of that. So does the senior Thai junta leadership listen to you and to Washington?
Yeah. Yes, I think they do. I believe they do. And I'm working my way slowly, diplomatically through the ranks of the cabinet. I'm having some really excellent exchanges and discussions. I've chosen, as a matter of almost principle, not to put words in the mouths of my interlocutors, because I think that's not only bad form but probably bad diplomacy. But yes, they're listening, and I wouldn't equate. I think you've set up a kind of a false construct here. they're not listening to you because they haven't, moved on a timetable that's assumed that it is assumed Washington has. I think I think you're, I mean, I understand your question. I get it. It's a good question. But I don't think that's the dynamic. It's not as if Washington is sitting back with a scorecard and, pins in a map or in a calendar of dates when things have to happen. In fact, I've tried to be very careful in my, 2 months plus. I'm not talking about dates certain when things have to happen. And this has to be worked out here, and we understand that. And so, yeah, I think they're listening. And I appreciate very much the fact that doors are open to me, and I'm able to secure a meeting early on with the Prime Minister, and I'm able to talk to the Deputy Prime Minister and talk to senior officials of the government and convey messages, and I believe they are being received. And, I'll keep at it. I mean, it's what we do. Thanks.
Thank you. Ambassador, perhaps I could just quickly follow up on that point that Jerome was making. I mean, you've made a big point just now about freedom of the press, your concern about the use of the criminal defamation law, and indeed, of course, the use of the penalties, the lèse-majesty law, Computer Crimes Act. When you've raised those issues, have you had a satisfactory response?
Well, I've been listened to, and my points have been acknowledged. And I've listened a great deal to explanations for why things are operating the way they are right now, and I'm going to keep listening to all that. And then soon, I'm going to get out beyond the confines of Bangkok. I can't wait to do that a bit more. We've done some travel. We've done the usual stuff: Chiang Mai and Cha Am and Ayutthaya and Rayong Province and Gochang Island, which is beautiful, by the way. If you haven't been there, you got to go. But soon, hope to get out and talk to other people as well. So, right now, I would say that the reception for me has been good, and that authorities are listening to what I have to say. And look, we're the United States of America. I mean, we're going to call it the way we see it. It's the only way we know how to roll, and so much will depend on what we see happening here, and will depend on our analysis of what it all adds up to, what it all means. And I'm going to do my best to both seek to improve the relationship, but also to stay true to our ideals and principles as Americans here. And maybe it's a high wire act that, I won't succeed in doing. I hope not. I think I can do it. I've been a diplomat for 35 years. But that's my goal. And through you, let me thank the government of the kingdom for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Hi, I'm Martin Solberg, Norwegian correspondent. Mr. Davies, welcome to Thailand. Kun put Pasa Thai mai?
Can you stick to English, please, because there's an English-speaking club.
I was just trying to establish if he speaks Thai already.
ผมพูดภาษาไทยได้นิดหน่อยผมรักมากภาษาไทยแต่ภาษาไทยไม่รักผม
Yeah, it's quite impressive. I had rumors that you already speak, read, and write fluent Thai. That's very impressive.
Don't you love it? What people say about me sometimes. I can read cue cards too, so I can anyway.
It's very impressive, and I'm sure that you know 100 times more about Thailand than I did when I moved to work here 7 years ago.
Mm.
That's why I'm a little bit surprised you didn't mention one time what perhaps is Thailand's largest problem: corruption.
Mm.
Corruption which permeates everything in Thailand, and I mean everything, from the young pupil whose parents have to pay the local headmaster to get on to the next level, through all the way through police, judiciary system, governmental agencies, business, every time an American company does a business contract here with a Thai company, you can expect 20, 30, or even 40% of that is corruption money. Would you agree with me that corruption is Thailand's largest challenge? And any further comments?
I think corruption is a big problem and big challenge for Thailand. I think there's no question about it. And, you know, this is not news to anybody. And the Thai government acknowledges that. It is a problem for our companies. I think it's a problem most of all for the people of Thailand. And I think the question becomes, you know, how will it be dealt with here? My own, perhaps at this stage, because I'm the new boy, simplistic prescription goes right back through that path that I touched on of getting back to democracy, of elected leaders being accountable to those who've elected them, of freedom of speech and of the press. I'm struck by, let me be diplomatic and call it a different tradition here when it comes to investigative journalism. I hope this is something that this club is working on, helping develop those capabilities here to conduct those kinds of you know, investigations of what's happening. So sure, it is a problem. It is a challenge, and I think it's a challenge everybody here is aware of, and it's a challenge we try to work on from the standpoint of the United States through our law enforcement cooperation with the government of Thailand, through our, we just had a fairly senior Justice Department official come out and talk about corruption, spent a week plus traveling all around the country describing how in the United States, which by the way has corruption, how it's dealt with in the United States, or we try to deal with it. Yeah, no argument. It's and there are many, many things I didn't talk about. So I'm guilty of leaving a lot of things out of my talk. I didn't talk about the education system. I didn't talk about a lot of the challenges that Thailand faces. I would again hold up a little bit of a mirror and suggest this is something, I know you work on it here at the FCCT, but I hope you keep working on this issue of corruption as well, and help Thai journalists try to get at it as well. One of the things that when I talk to Thai officials about is I tell them that my own personal view of how we kind of broke the back of corruption at the municipal level, the city level in the United States, because it wasn't until about the second, third generation of the 20th century that municipal governments in the United States could really be said to be, on the whole, non-corrupt. They were corrupt until the 1920s, 30s, but we did it through two things. We did it through a free press, the muckrakers, Ida Tarbell and Lincoln Steffens, and these great, intrepid journalists who went out and investigated what was going on around the country. And we did it through an independent judiciary that people trusted, that where you could bring suit and expect a fair hearing. And so I think the way to get at problems like corruption is to get at some of these challenges. Free press, independent judiciary, these kinds of things. It's not enough to kind of shout from the rooftops, corruption exists, corruption's bad. You gotta find it, talk about it, shine light on it, and then deal with it.
Thanks very much. Can we have the next question, please?
Your Excellency, my name is Colonel Acha Bunkapur. I'm a military analyst, policy analyst. I can assure you Thailand listens to you very attentively, and so do I, sir. And we welcome you.
Thank you.
My question is, if US is an apple tree and Thailand is a mango tree, and if you cut the mango tree and try to put apple to grow on the mango tree, I mean, I'm trying to make analogy that.
I understand. I understand what you're saying.
You want for us to
Right.
progress into a democratic society. So my question is, if Thailand is a mango tree and our fruit is a caring society in a Thai way, we do treat, I know that the issue of the human trafficking or the fishing on the ICL, whatever, but we have a caring way in Thai, sai chai. We put our heart in it, but
Right.
maybe it's a Thai style. How would you, US accept that and respect that, sir? And so we are trying to move to reform and reconcile, but maybe it's not exactly the federal system or the Congress system, but it's,
Right.
it's our way, sir.
Sure.
Thailand caring society. How would you respond, sir? Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you for speaking from the heart, actually literally. I'm not here to engage in genetic modification of Thai society or the political system. That would be a huge mistake. Democracy, you've all heard it, Winston Churchill's famous phrase. It's actually been so often misquoted that I'll misquote it too, but, democracy is the worst form of government, except for all other forms. And I think, I think he was not wrong about that. Democracy takes a lot of different forms. Nobody is saying to Thailand, you have to have an American-style democracy. That's the last thing I would wish on Thailand, because I don't think it would work. But, democracy is something that the government here has said, and I've heard it from very senior people here, is the goal, to get back to democracy. So I take the government at its word that it wants to do that in a Thai fashion. That's perfectly well understood. Democracy is a universal, I think, principle. I mean, read the documents that exist at the level of the United Nations that talk about the key tenets of democracy. The right of self-determination of peoples to choose their own leaders, of free speech and assembly and so forth. These are very fundamental things. They're not American things. They're not American principles. We've been at it a long time because we, have lived on a continent with two oceans surrounding us and have been able to kind of run this experiment for 230 years, and it's gone pretty well in terms of our experience with it. So Thailand's got to do it on its own. Everybody understands that. People listen to me, and I'm very thankful for that. I respect, I'm a bit amazed at the attention I've gotten representing the United States. It's really kind of dramatic to be in this role. And so I ask myself literally every day, how do I act? What do I do? What do I say? How do I navigate this very complex situation? And I've chosen not to try to not to come across as somebody wagging a finger, shouting through a megaphone about these issues. I hope that's not how I come across. If that's what's happening, then I'm making a big mistake here. So I get it about the fact that this is a very special, very ancient culture that does have 4,000 phrases with the word heart in it. I understand that. I understand that respect is important here. I understand that people here don't want to give up their traditions. I understand full well, I think I do, that the king is revered. So all of this is clear to me, and I don't want to come across as somebody who is trying to dictate a particular American approach to Thailand as it carries forward the mission Thailand has set for itself, which is to get back to a Thai form of democracy. And, I said before, and this is the last thing I'll say because I know others have questions, that we are guilty of some things, we Americans. We're guilty of impatience. We're an impatient place. If you've ever been to New York, you know what I'm talking about. And we're guilty of having high expectations for Thailand, because we know Thailand's a country that can do it. I mean, this is a country that pulled itself up by the bootstraps dramatically over 3 generations, from being very, very poor to being a middle-income country with a $5,000 per head GDP. Remarkable for a country of 67, 68 million people. You know, this is a country that has had democratically elected governments before. You can do it. It can be done. We know that. And so, yes, we do have high expectations for you. And it's not just because we want to try to export Jeffersonian democracy to Thailand. That would be idiotic. It's because what we want, what we need, since we placed a bet on you, at the same time you placed a bet on us 2 centuries ago, 9 generations ago, we want you to be strong. We want you to be stable. We want you to be prosperous. We want the lives of your children and your grandchildren to be more wonderful than your life. And we think, because we're American and because of how, in our experience, that is achieved through allowing the people of the country to have a direct link in some fashion, form or fashion, with those who govern them. And that is democracy, and that is what this government has said it is seeking to achieve, and we applaud that.
Can we have the next question, please?
Thank you.
Wadikap.
So
My name is Al Eberhardt. I've been here starting December 7, 50 years, living and working continuously. First lifetime member of the FCCT,
Oh my goodness.
board member 8283, and I forgot what I was going to say.
Listen, that's okay, because I'm still absorbing all that. That's impressive stuff. That's great. Thank you.
Fundamentally, this is a statement, not political.
Could you pop a question at the end of it?
Turn it into a question. Make it like the Jeopardy show. Turn it
Don't
into
get
a
funny. Hey,
Yeah.
I got to loosen up.
Okay, go ahead. There you go. There you go. You're doing hip hop.
That's
Sorry.
Michael Jackson.
Oh, sorry. He's moonwalking, people. He's actually moonwalking. Yeah. Thank you.
The statement is the greatest single enterprise commercially on Earth right now is the IoT, Internet of Things. Anybody here, put your hand up if you know the IoT, if you read about it.
I think I know what you're talking about. You talk about the internet. Right?
It's an incredible, a very significant new electricity. I won't go into it, but my point is that it is going to change world history. $16 billion will be generated over the next 10 years. Our debt per year is $1 trillion in America. My point, America is the greatest country on earth. Thailand is the most wonderful country.
That's good.
I was there for 21 years. I've been here for 50,
That's great.
having a good time. My point, the Internet of Things is changing world history. Largest single commercial venture ever in the history of the world. The top 10 companies in 3 years of the world, top 10 companies, will not have gross together the income that the IoT will generate. Now, my last point, or the point I want to make. I met a kid here in town, Englishman,
Yeah.
down in Pattaya, Thai wife,
Yeah.
broke. He had a new microphone sound, a new guitar sound. This is a long time away in another galaxy, 35 years ago. I went and I listened to the microphone, ping, man, it was something different. I could tell by the singer something was different. So I went to the U.S. Embassy commercial section. I said, I got something that's really cool, but I don't know what I'm doing with it.
Yeah.
And I told him, he says, you need the guys from the 3rd floor.
Uh-huh.
3rd floor was, guy comes down,
Other
black
guys,
shoes, black
yeah.
pants, black shirt, black glasses, black hat. Yeah, what you got? To make a long story short, the embassy, 35 years ago, for 6 years, supported the effort because of the signal. Now it is the IoT, but they supported it because it was a major breakthrough in communications. We were doing it with amateur radio. I could tell, I'm not an amateur radio guy, it wasn't then, but I could tell the reaction. Powerful, 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 powerful. South Africa, unbelievable. What do you got? What do you got? Okinawa. Anyway, the IoT, 6 years here, another 4 years in Washington, D.C., no money paid to us or anything else, acquired the knowledge, and it is now available. It started in April of 2013. It's going to change world history. And it's because our embassy here, the commercial guy and the guy in black, they went out.
Great.
They took a chance. That's it.
Thank you, sir.
You got a question?
Rock and roll.
Okay.
Thank you.
A speech.
I told you I'd never given a talk in a bar before.
I don't know. Hey, believe me, we got to get together. Another thing, if anybody's interested in the IoT, I have some paperwork and I have a package for the ambassador.
Thank you.
Can we get the next
I look forward
question,
to that.
please?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I'm David Feingold from Ophidian.
Hi, David.
And we don't do the Internet of Things, but probably should. I can also say, Mr. Ambassador, that you made me feel very old. Because when my ambassador is younger than the amount of time that I've spent in Thailand, that makes me feel quite old. For 15 years, I headed the UNESCO regional program on HIV/AIDS and trafficking. And so I do have a question.
Yes.
And my question is, one of the things that we found out is, first of all, that Hill Tribe people are disproportionately represented among trafficking victims and disproportionately represented to their numbers among victims of HIV. And one of the key factors that we found, in fact, the key factor, the single greatest risk factor for a Highland person in Thailand, not from across the border, to be trafficked or otherwise exploited is lack of citizenship. And even today, nearly 40% of Highland people who were born here, their parents were born here, their grandparents were born here, their family was here longer than the family of the last prime minister, are still not citizens. And this problem was first diagnosed in a report by, I'm an anthropologist, this was by an Austrian anthropologist in 1964.
David, can you get to the question?
Yes.
It's taking a little while to get there.
I am. I always do. So it said that the problems for Hill tribes was going to be lack of citizenship and lack of land tenure. Now, given the United States having come down somewhat hard on Thailand on the issue of trafficking, have you spoken to this government about the issue of the way it's dealing with its Highland minorities? Jonathan, that was my question, which I got to.
I have not.
Do you plan to?
Well, I'm certainly going to look into it, and if I should, I will. I appreciate that. Thanks very much. No, I haven't raised it with them. No. Thank you.
David. Robert, sorry.
My name's Robert Holmes. I'm not a journalist. I'm a lawyer.
Yeah.
I'm Australian. I'll be blunt and I'll be short. You tell me that the Thai government have told you that they are progressing towards democracy. One, do you believe them? And secondly, quoting, I think, your own spokesman of the Secretary of the State Department, will it pass the smell test?
That's your question. You know, when I hear government officials here talking about the roadmap, I take what they say with a great deal of sincerity. I believe they are sincere about returning this country to democracy. It's not really for me to decide whether I personally agree or believe or not what they're saying. What my job is to look at how events proceed, and then render judgments to my government about whether or not I think it is proceeding in the manner that it's been indicated to us is intended, and then we have to make a judgment about how we respond to that. So I'm not really in the business of necessarily sitting there and believing or disbelieving what I see. I think there's a great deal of sincerity about it. I think everybody I'm dealing with is a patriot. I think everybody I'm dealing with loves this country. I think everyone I'm dealing with sincerely wants this country to be stronger, more stable, more prosperous, and to get back to some kind of a system that creates a transmission belt between the people of the nation and its government. How it all comes out, I can't say. I've only been here a very short period of time. We can do everything we can as a friend and partner and ally of Thailand to try to support Thailand as it goes forward here. But this has to be a made in Thailand product. And that's why I think I shouldn't be in the business of trying to pass judgment on whether or not I believe this or that individual is necessarily telling me sincerely what they believe or not. I mean, that will come out in the totality of what occurs in this.
In other words, not put the cart before the horse. Yeah, I understand.
Well, I think, I don't know. I mean, I'm the new boy. I've been here 2+ months. I'm still trying to figure things out. I haven't begun to get around the country. I've said that. I need to do that. I need to talk to people everywhere. I know there are a multiplicity of opinions out there about where this country's headed and how it ought to get there, and I want to listen to everybody, and that's kind of my job. So I'm not making snap judgments about whether I think they're being sincere with me or not. But I have concluded from many conversations already that there are many people in this government who want to try to make this work, and that's important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more question, please. This is the last question.
Yeah, hi, Glyn. I am Ming, and I think they all asked your touch question, so I just want to ask an easy question.
Are you from a newspaper or a?
Yes, but maybe I'm just a tech blogger, so not so.
You're a blogger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vietnamese.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think every expat have to prepare before coming to work in another country, and for your work, I think it's probably the most well prepared position. So I just want to ask how long and how did you prepare before coming to Thailand?
How long I prepared for coming? Yeah. Well, 35 years. I'm not kidding. I mean, I've spent 35 years doing this. I started at the age of 22, and I believe in diplomacy. I think the best way to solve problems is through jaw rather than war, right? And so I've spent 35 years trying to learn how to be a diplomat and represent my country and find ways to get points across and to listen and figure out how to create, I guess what's the modern term, win-win situations for my government. So I think I've been, ever since I graduated from Georgetown University, I've been preparing for this. I really do think that, because I'm pouring everything into this job that I picked up over 35 years in Australia, in Africa, in Europe, Washington, to try to make a success of it. And I won't be the judge of whether I succeed or not, but I'm going to keep at it. And hope that by the time I leave, whenever that is, we're having an election in about a year, and that could change things for me. I don't know. And by the way, you should get on our website. The embassy website has got a really cool page where every day we've got an interesting little picture, a little vignette about what's going on in our presidential elections. Check that out. We're really proud of that at the embassy, so check that out. So I hope whenever I leave, whether it's with a new president or if I'm allowed to stay for 3 years, that I can say I made this relationship stronger and better and improved things for maybe a little bit for the United States and a little bit for Thailand, and that's the job I've got. The one thing I don't want to be is a shrinking violet. I don't want to just go in my office and sign out telegrams. I want to do things like this. I want to get around and meet people. I want to take a few risks. Otherwise, life is boring. And, and it'll be up to the people who write the newspapers and report the news on the television, the radio, and the internet to decide whether I've done a good job. So thanks.
Ambassador,
you have a great answer, and would you please say more specific about, Thailand, for example, how did you learn Thai or culture, history?
Sure. That's easy. Yeah. Okay, so I studied Thai for a while, and I really do love Thai. It's a cool language. At the age of 58, starting out to learn Thai, it's been, it's been a steep learning curve. So I'm going to keep at it. Jackie and I take language classes. We try to take language classes a couple of times a week. I try to use it, but it's not easy because everybody speaks English. But what I did a lot of was I read books. It's what we do. We geeks at the State Department, we read books. And I read every book I could put my hands on about Thailand, and I talked to a lot of people because there are lots of people around Washington, around the United States who love this country, who've lived in this country, who have opinions about this country. Both people who've served here as diplomats, but also business people, journalists, and others. I guess it's okay to, I won't say his name, but one particular journalist I worked with in my previous job knows this country very well. He's with the wire service, and I spent a lot of time talking to him. So, that's what I did. I tried to talk to everyone I could, read everything I could, learn a little bit of Thai, and and I went all over Washington, and I talked to every federal agency I could go, from the Peace Corps to the Commerce Department to the Defense Department, to ask them what they thought, and that's what I did. I studied. I'm still studying. I'm still a schoolboy. Thank you.
Ambassador Glyn Davies, thanks very much indeed. Wonderful books about Americans in Thailand. It's published this year.